and welcome to Adaptation, where we talk about film adaptations and the original material they're based on, even if they don't quite exist yet. I'm Kendall Bryant, and it's time for another Dreamcast. If you don't remember, last year at GeekyCon I asked people what books they'd like to see turned into films, and from that resulting list, I all but jumped at the chance to Dreamcast Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell. I'm since regretting that enthusiasm, but not because I didn't enjoy the book. Despite some problematic elements, it made me feel way too many things to not end up loving it. It's a story of two teenagers in 1986 Nebraska who have a sort of adorable meet cute on the school bus. I mean, it starts out not so great, but it becomes adorable. Anyway, Eleanor has a pretty terrible home life, and Park has a better one, but everybody has their problems. And they're both loners until they aren't, and then things happen that I'm not going to spoil for anybody that hasn't read it. But back to why I kind of regret taking this book. It was the hardest Dreamcast that I've ever had to do, and even now I'm about to tell you my final choices, and I'm not sure that they are my final choices. I feel like there still might be actors out there that I didn't know existed that could take these roles. But ultimately, it threw some issues with Hollywood into sharp relief. Let's start with Eleanor. She's a heavy girl with crazy curly bright red hair, warm brown eyes, very pale skin, and freckles. And unfortunately, I don't know that many overweight teen actresses, and even fewer that could pull off looking like a natural redhead. So I'm casting Willow Shields for this role, with the stipulation that she would gain weight for it. Mostly I'm casting her because I think she has a really interesting face. Like, it makes me want to stare at it, but I wouldn't immediately think, oh, she's gorgeous. And after seeing her in The Hunger Games, I'd like to see what she would do in a role like this. For her mother, who looks like Eleanor but is more immediately beautiful, small, elegant, and with auburn waves, I've cast Maria Thayer. I've mostly seen her in comedic roles like Accepted and Forgetting Sarah Marshall, but I got really attached to her as Eleanor's mother when I noticed that her and Willow Shields both have a chin dimple. So I guess I'm just hoping that she'd be willing to take on a serious role like this. Which brings me to Richie, Eleanor's stepdad, who she describes as looking like a rat. And I don't think we get any more description than that. But personality-wise, he's angry, creepy, and I needed somebody that could leer with the best of them. Enter Jimmy Simpson. You might know him from House of Cards and It's Always Sunny, and I purposely picked this unkempt picture so that you could see the creep potential. So now it's time to talk about the person that was the absolute hardest for me to cast, Park. I was really determined going in to get a Korean actor for this role, but I really could not find any that were of the appropriate age range, especially since my cast for Eleanor is 15 years old. I didn't want to get into like Kai Hong Lee, who's 29. It gets weird then, right? Plus, in general, I tend to be very dedicated to accurate age casting because I think it's important. Plus just accurate casting in general. So in the end, I made the decision to change the story, and I made Park and his mother Japanese. The good part about this is that then the film can ditch the bringing a war bride back from Korea storyline that was kind of gross anyway. And as far as Park's storyline is concerned, I didn't feel like there was anything that hinged on him having specifically Korean heritage that couldn't be easily changed for the storyline. So, all that said, I cast Ryan Potter as Park. I know him as the voice of Hero from Big Hero 6, but he's also done other live-action roles. He doesn't have Park's green eyes, but he is really attractive, so I think Eleanor would approve. For Park's mom, and this is probably the casting decision that I am the most excited about because I love her, I've cast Keiko Agena. She just spent 7 years on some little TV show, I don't know if you've heard of it, Gilmore Girls, and I think that it really provided a good background for this role. Although in a different way, Mrs. Sheridan is definitely a pushy mom like Keiko's TV mom was in Gilmore Girls. And although I'm not sure this is supported in the text, I imagine her dressing like an older 80s version of Keiko's character in that show. There was definitely a reference in Eleanor and Park to her wearing fringed boots, and I just kind of ran with that in my mind. She's also described as being tiny, and Keiko's only 5'1", so that fits too. As for the man that is super in love with this woman, he's described as Tom Selleck. Guess what? Nobody looks like Tom Selleck except Tom Selleck. For me, he had to be somebody that looked like they were in the military, could be very likable, but also very intimidating. As an avid Grey's Anatomy fan, that meant Kevin McKidd. He's Scottish, not Irish, like Park's grandparents are super proud of, but I think he's got the right look and the right range for this role. You might have noticed that I didn't cast any of the other high school roles, and that's because apparently I have become very out of touch with the up-and-coming teen actors. I tried really hard to cast Tina, but I was hesitant to suggest somebody just based on looks that I hadn't seen act. And like I said, I'm not really married to any of these choices. A lot of them had very slim pickings, especially Eleanor Park. And so maybe the real solution is to cast some unknowns for the roles and get new blood in Hollywood. But for now, I'm leaving it to you. Let me know in the comments if you would recast anybody on my list, and if you have anyone in mind for Tina, Steve, Cal, BB, or Denise. Make sure you subscribe for more videos, check out our podcast on iTunes, and all of our social media, which is linked in the info section. Until next time, remember, nothing brings two people together like X-Men comics and the Smiths. Actually, Hollywood uses the Smiths a lot to bring two people together. Maybe they don't know any other bands.